Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is the Outer Rim transmission. This is episode number 88. It is the end of the year, so we're doing a best of Star Wars in the year of 2022. Everything from comics to news to stories to the shows to our favorites of all these different goodness things of Star Wars. We're going to get into it tonight. I'm joined by Milton. Ben's going to try to connect later on, but for now, we're going to hold down the ship for this lofty episode of fun discussion. How's it going, Milton?
It's good, man. It's good. It's glad to be back on the podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
know we're ending the year. We got a lot of stuff going on with family. Probably all three of us with our families in the next couple of weeks. But I'm excited to talk some Star Wars, like always.
Oh, heck yeah, heck yeah. It's the holidays go hand in hand together with Star Wars ever since 2015, I'll tell you, because with The Force Awakens, it was very much, hey, it's that time to talk Star Wars with your family members, because there's always a new movie out to talk about. And well, unfortunately, we haven't had that since 2019. But some rumors might be held with water here. We're gonna get into maybe some movies back in 2025. So, but for now, we have lots of series that came out this year, lots of books, lots of comics and whatnot. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But how was your week as far as Star Wars is concerned? Any cool like holiday decorations just seen on your passings by or anything like that related to Star Wars?
Nothing related. Well, I didn't really have much of a week this week with Star Wars, but as for any Christmas decorations, actually no, that's not true. So I'll say this. So this past week, I went Christmas shopping for my family members that's on our Secret Santa list, and I actually have to shop for my little niece who was born back in August. And of course, me being a nerd, I decided to get her like these cool Star Wars like 12-month-old sweaters with Baby Yoda. So
There you
I
go.
showed my sister. Yeah, I showed my sister. She's like, Sawyer will love it. That's my niece. She said she'll love them. So yeah, I did get those sweaters for her. And then my friend of mine who's watching tonight, she got me a new Darth Vader ornament for my tree. So
Oh,
yeah, so that's on there currently.
dude. So, do you have any other Star Wars Christmas ornaments?
Yes, I do actually have I think a Grogu. It's currently on my tree. I have two Darth Vader ornaments, a Grogu, and I think that's it. Everything else is like wrestling, eagles, or like just traditional ornaments.
Then that's gonna actually transition pretty nicely into my week in Star Wars. So, me and my girlfriend were decorating my Star Wars tree because it literally there's nothing else at this point. It's just overtaken by Star Wars. Don't even bother putting on my other old ornaments because like from 1997 onward, I'd be getting as part of my Christmas gift would be a new Hallmark Star Wars ornament. And some years, recent years especially, I've gotten more than one because I'm like, oh, that one looks cool. I just can't settle with one. I'll just buy the other one with my own money or whatever. So yeah, but we always put on, or at least I always put on a Star Wars movie. I've been doing this for a while, and I was looking through Disney Plus, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna put on the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special because that's about the most festive Star Wars anything there is to watch. So that was kind of cool revisiting that because we both had some chuckles in there because it is a really fun episode. And then she was all like, "Oh, you know what? because Ray and Finn and Poe are in there. She's like, I really like those characters. I really like that trilogy." She's like, I want to watch that. I want to watch more of that. I was like, all right. So then I put on The Force Awakens, and so it's a great
Right.
night of just taking our time with the tree. But then every once in a while we both just like stop, especially with The Force Awakens, and just like stare and just watch the movie for a good 5 minutes. And we're both like, yeah, this movie moves, and you get sucked in to this darn movie. So it took longer than
Yeah.
we wanted it to, but that's for a good thing, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And like I said, and again, I'm gonna throw some praise at the sequel trilogy, especially that first one. The Fourth Awakens really isn't a bad film at all. I think that's the one I actually do like because it does move. The first 30 minutes was really, really good. Probably the first 45 minutes was really good. Um, I think towards the middle it gets kind of wonky, not wonky, but just the pacing's different. But that's a very solid film. So yeah, I'll give the sequel trilogy its credit.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I mean that was a really fun time we had there. As far as another cool thing that I want to talk about, and I'm Too bad Ben's not here to talk about this because I'm sure he'd have a laugh at this. But I was training a new client this week, and I mentioned something about Star Wars or something, and he's like, "Oh, you like Star Wars?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You watch all the series?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Have you watched Andor, the latest one?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know anything about this brick and screw thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're kidding me. Are you talking about that social media uproar that happened with the Star Wars theory guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, that." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're already getting in the weeds if he already knew about that sort of thing." So I had to laugh at that moment because I'm like, yeah, some of this stuff travels and you don't even know who you're talking to, but sometimes this drama can even get into the mainstream, if you will. So
Right, right. No, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, I've dealt with that with people that had just started working with us, and someone asked me about Kenobi and Andor, and I was like, yeah, I watched them both. So,
yep,
yeah.
yep, 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 yep. All right. And I've been continuing to play through Galaxies here of Heroes as we were talking about before we ended up hitting the stream button here, and yeah, I'm working my way through. I got the Inquisitor team going. I got the Black Chrysanthemum, somebody that I've been wanting, comic book character come to life in a video game, even if it is a mobile game. It's pretty freaking sweet. So yeah, having a good time. Better time. I didn't think I would still be playing a week later, but here I am. Here I am.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, I play it every day. It's a fun little game, and then as you get used to it and start collecting and get more like points or whatever, or like once you get into it and establish a good routine with it, you'll be fine. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very like it's a game that takes time to build.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're gonna break down what we're here to do, and that's this week in Star Wars. Um, there's not a lot going on, so that's why it was a good time to kind of end the year, if you will, just like looking back because it was a jam-packed year. I made a list here, going through. I'll just go through quickly here, and then we can kind of pick out things that we really enjoyed the most. Whether it be comics, we had the Crimson Reign, the Hidden Empire series continuing. We had a big thing with Star Wars returning to Dark Horse Comics. As far as the games are concerned, we were hoping for more with the games, but we did finally get Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I'll definitely highlight some of that. As far as books is concerned, we had novels for Shadows of the Sith, Brotherhood, The Princess and the Scoundrel, Padawan, The Fallen Star, which also goes into High Republic, which we had Phase 1 ending and then the beginning of Phase 2, so a lot there. As far as TV with live action, we had the Book of Boba Fett, we had Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Andor all in the same freaking year. It's crazy, right? Animation-wise, we had, as I mentioned, another Lego Star Wars special. This one was Summer Vacation, but we had the 6 shorts for Tales of the Jedi, focusing on Dooku as well as Ahsoka. We had documentaries that followed up the likes of Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and an original ILM specifically focused with a lot of Star Wars for Light and Magic. We also had some park stuff. We had a brand new cruise ship opening up, Star Wars on the Wish, the Disney Wish, little cantina thing. We also had the Galactic Star Cruiser that opened up, which is the Star Wars Hotel, and a lot of Star Wars celebration stuff was done over there in Anaheim, California. So, yeah, I went through that pretty quickly actually, but we're gonna kind of break down. So, maybe breaking this down off the top of your head, Milton. What was one of the biggest thrills you got out of Star Wars this year? Was it a series? Was it any of the things I mentioned, an episode of something, an appearance of a certain character, or anything like that? We'll start off with the good stuff. Like what really wowed you this year when it came to Star Wars?
I think for me it was probably Tales of the Jedi. I'll be honest with you. I think my most anticipated was Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean that's just a given, So Obi-Wan was a show that I was really looking forward to. Just because it's Obi-Wan, it's Vader, it's those legend characters. Those are the characters that both generations of prequels and originals grew up with, and it's like, okay, and we got this, and it was nice to see that Hayden Christensen was starting to get that love, and I thought that particular Star Wars Celebration did a really good job at hyping the show up, and it was released like the day, I think it was a day 2 of Star Wars Celebration.
Yep.
So it was a perfect timing, and again, that show was very highly anticipated because we let's be honest here, Boba Fett didn't really do what it needed to do as a show in the sense of, like it was continuing pretty much like it was 2.5 of Mando, pretty much. So I think from a lot of fans' perspective, they thought that Obi-Wan Kenobi, how can they mess that up? So I know for me, that was my highly anticipated show. We'll say the show that really just, for me, that kind of was, I wasn't expecting much for it, but then I shouldn't be surprised, was Tales of the Jedi. Just because like that show was awesome. Animation department of Star Wars have nothing but sensational over the last 5 to 6 years. So that show was probably my favorite show as far as my favorite Star Wars property of this 2022 year.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get all into that, but I think we have somebody that's about to join us. Give me 1 second here. The sound might go off for like a second, but don't fret, people in the live chat. We are still live here. We might have a quick little transition. But yes, so there's a lot going on as far as Tales of the Jedi was a nice little surprise, I gotta admit. Nice little surprise there for Tales of the Jedi because 6 episodes. I mean, they did so much for all of Star Wars. They really did. They added so much to the lore, with the Phantom Menace especially. Everything that happened with Dooku especially was just incredible stuff right there. We're going to try to get the rest of the crew in here in a minute here. So just bear with us here. Okay, I definitely hear myself talking, so that means somebody's coming on here. We got Ben now with us in the chat. How's it going, Ben?
Good. Sorry about the delay, guys. I literally had to reset my Discord password because apparently I didn't know it. And then on top of that, we've been dealing with all kinds of internet issues at my house as well because it's about minus 10 degrees here with about almost minus 30 wind chill and 40 mile an hour winds. So that's what I've been dealing with this evening, but I'm finally made it.
And we're finally all here in the same room. I mean, it took us a while, but we're here.
Yep.
Yeah, so Milton had gone through some of the highlights for him, ending with Tales of the Jedi. So I think we should start there. Let's start with Tales of the Jedi because I feel like Tales of the Jedi kind of gets the short end of the stick in a certain manner because it came out in the middle of Andor. And, we always say it's like we'll never understand what the heck Lucasfilm does when it comes to releasing content. We got Bad Batch coming out in the middle of Mando or vice versa. It's coming out with Mando in the middle of Bad Batch. But anyway, yeah, let's elaborate, Milton, more on Tales of the Jedi and why it was so impactful for you specifically.
Yeah, look, it's the storytelling. It's the storytelling, and I've always said this literally since Dave Filoni has been involved with Star Wars, which dates back to the mid 2000s, whenever they had Clone Wars be developed, or I guess late 2000s. Yeah, like the way they tell stories with the animation has been nothing but on point and stellar. I've never once been disappointed when it comes to the storytelling. I mean, have there been some episodes of shows that I didn't like? Absolutely, but they weren't terrible. Now, the only show I could say that wasn't great to me was Resistance. I only got like the first 2 episodes and I was done with it. But again, that's one failure, in my opinion. One failure out of how many animated shows or shorts that they created. But speaking of Tales of the Jedi, I mean, just them being 15-minute episodes got so much character development, so much story being moved forward, where it really expands in the story of Star Wars, but it strengthens the prequels. It strengthens some of the things about the original trilogy. I mean, it did its job. I mean, it's nothing short of, honestly, in my opinion, of a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when we get to some of these live action shows, we typically are like, these episodes aren't long enough, right? Like we're looking at Mando specifically. That's always a common criticism is, what? It's only 29 minutes or 32 minutes? Like, there's not enough time to tell a story. But then you look at Tales of the Jedi, and some of those 15-minute episodes felt like they were 30 minutes because there's so much deep character growth in that small amount of time. And it's like blowing your mind with what is happening with the journeys of the characters that we had never thought of in that perspective. So that was funny for me because it's like, well, I guess we can never use that excuse anymore about time and quality of
here's
stories.
the thing though. My only argument with that would be, I think with live action, the difference is you can do a lot more with animation because there's like probably the budget's not as high. You know, there's really the shooting schedule isn't like shooting schedules for live action. I think you can get away with keeping a lot more in when it comes to animation compared to like live action and I guess cutting stuff out. But even that's kind of a weak argument. But my thing is though, why can't these live action properties tell a strong story? Like if again these animated shows are 15 minutes and they're great. I mean, look at Visions. We all raved about Visions, and that's not a lot of them aren't even American studios that are telling really good stories within a 10-minute interval. And it's like, come on, like you can if live action is going to be 45 minutes to 30 minutes, at least build out a story for us that's going to make sense and be consistent. I think that's why I think we were getting upset about some of the live action stuff, but yeah, I mean, Tales of the Jedi to me was some of the best Star Wars of this year.
Oh yeah. Ben, tell us, are you on that level with Milton as far as hype and enjoyment out of those 6 episodes that came out in October?
Well, I mean, first of all, I do want to also note, on storytelling, great storytelling from you both to start this podcast, like hearing about your girlfriend Chris and your friend Milton, talking about like, their experiences like watching Star Wars and all of that sort of stuff, because I was listening to it while I was getting my Discord stuff around. So that's great, like hearing how Star Wars and its storytelling, is drawing people in, whether it be The Force Awakens and into the sequel trilogy with yours, Chris, or, the original trilogy with yours, Milton, like things like that. Like that's like, to me, the best part of Star Wars, because when you bring in great storytelling, it doesn't matter the era or like the preconceived notions potentially, say, of the sequel trilogy, like people can still get sucked in from the stories. So like that's always a nice part. Like even with our like hardest critiques of some of the Star Wars properties, like say the sequel trilogy, for example, like it's good. The storyline at a bare minimum, like face value, like you can just work with, say, the sequel trilogy in standalone without any context. You can kind of make it make sense, like if you're just not over analyzing it. So like it's good that like the storytelling is good enough like that for, say, more of a general audience. Because I mean that's the most important thing here when it comes to either Tales of the Jedi, sequel trilogy, Boba, and or whatever. Like, all of us, like we want to like believe we're like the majority of the fandom, but we're like the hardcore like Star Wars fans, like online, in a podcast, on a Friday night, like these type of things, we're like in probably the minor 15%. And like there's a wider general audience out there. And it's great like seeing just from both of your examples, like how the storytelling is like affecting, those people in your lives. So like I think that's great hearing that to start the podcast. And I'm sure a bunch of our listeners and viewers, I'm sure they had similar experiences all throughout the year. So I think that's a really important part of, this whole podcast as a whole, as we go through the different Star Wars things throughout the year, the storytelling is like the core foundation of all of these properties, whether it be books, movies, games, etc. But in terms of Tales of the Jedi, for me, I think that was the most important part of it, was the storytelling. Obviously, like the visuals were great, like the action was great, but like you mentioned, Milton, like it had heart to it, like it had a good draw with the actual stories, whether it be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 14 minutes, whatever. Like all the stories made sense. Like, heck, when we opened the first episode or second episode, whichever one it was, with baby Ahsoka, it's like this could go off the rails really quick, since it's a baby Ahsoka episode, and that was one of the better stories in my opinion, because like it just went, it played out really well. Like it went to places I wasn't expecting it, with them like killing that tiger creature, like, and then just like the life lessons Ahsoka got from it. I thought that was amazing. And then of course the Count Dooku stuff was really good storytelling as well. Like I just think the storytelling was like the biggest part of Tales of the Jedi, in my opinion, that gives us the quality that we need, versus like, you don't need quantity per se. Like you don't need like an hour-long episode as much as we would like it to be, because they still got their bang for their buck basically in the 15 minutes they did it.
I agree with that, and see, and this is where I, like I said, we can talk about that argument between it's an hour-long episode or whatever. If you tell me it's a limited series, you need to go all out. You can't.
Yeah.
You can cut stuff to make the story tight and concise. However, don't give me more. Don't give me questions with no answers. That's the thing. And I think how some of the live action properties. Again, we can look at Boba Fett, a little bit of parts of Kenobi. Like we had questions about some of those episodes. That's why Andor, for me, is also on his list of a show that was unexpected, but did it for me as well. Because yes, the first 3 episodes to me was, I wouldn't say choppy. The pacing was an issue. However, and everyone can attest to this, as the show was going on, I was liking it more and more and more. Except for the finale, just kind of was a little bit of a letdown, but it wasn't trash. But the storytelling was pretty much consistently tight throughout that whole entire show. So again, the episodes range from 55 minutes to 35, 40 minutes, the shortest one.
So like 50 minutes.
But yeah, like Tony Gilroy though, at least was telling really good quality stories in each episode. Like he wasn't really like keeping out things that I don't know. I guess I'm not saying it right, but it just made sense for how he was trying to convey his story in that particular show.
Well, another thing, another good point that you brought up there, Milton, is like with the time frame. That's another thing I think we'll have to kind of maybe, as we get more into the different shows like Mando season 3, Ahsoka, because Ahsoka's not limited. It's potentially an ongoing series. Like they don't brand it as limited, so we'll probably get at least 2 seasons of that. And even Boba's next season, potentially with that, I think we'll be able to look at the time limits differently in Andor season 2 even, or Skeleton Crew, or the Acolyte. I think the time, of course we always want more time, but I think that's going to become potentially a, not a mute point, but like a point that's, I don't want to say not a good argument eventually, because if this makes sense, so like your point bringing up the limited series thing, like as long as we know it's not a limited series, I'm fine with virtually whatever time. But the thing is, when you brand, to me anyways, in my opinion, when you brand it a limited, like a completely limited series, you just, you know what I mean? You like put the pressure on the show. Like you're watching every single minute. Like, see, this is, everyone here knows me. My best friend comes over every week to watch these live action shows. So, like every time we're like halfway through the episode, and he's like, "Quick, pause it for a second. I want to see how much time's left." And then we're like, "Oh man, 17 minutes to go, and we're still not like getting the point across." So that's the thing. Like, I think going forward, knowing the shows aren't limited, like Mando season 3 is not limited. Boba, etc. Knowing they're not limited, I think helps the audience because it takes off the pressure of every individual episode. If that makes sense. If I'm getting my point across.
No, I understand that. I think that's a good point.
By the way, Ben, your camera is gone.
Oh wait, I should be back now.
Because hey, we have a video feed again. Hey, look at that.
Sorry about that. A Samsung menu popped up.
Yep, we're live, people. That's what happens. Technology.
But yeah, so that was my point about the time thing. I think eventually, knowing the series are not limited helps us as an audience to not criticize it as hard, because in the back of your head you always know there's more time, there's more series. Like for example, Tales of the Jedi, they didn't brand it as limited, so like we didn't really criticize the length of the episodes too much because that wasn't in the back of our heads, like saying, "Oh man, we only have 10 minutes with these characters." Like that wasn't even a thought.
Right.
Alrighty. Yeah, sorry, I'm just doing some producing stuff on the back end. And apparently there was a Discord for there's an update for Discord. I did not update it, which is why everything's looking funny tonight. So we're just flying by the seat of our pants. It's all right.
That's all good.
At least you can still hear
Live
us.
show.
So this might be more of a podcast rather than a live video stream you want to watch. I'll just warn you after the fact. Have it on, but do something else. You're not going to look at our pretty faces on this one very often. But yeah, no, let me chime in a little bit because I'm letting you guys do the brunt of all this as I'm doing background stuff. But yeah, as far as for me, I mean, I expected Andor to be good, but as good as it turned out to be was something where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a 9 out of 10 Star Wars, everybody. This is a 9 out of 10 Star Wars coming off of Obi-Wan, which had its ups and downs, and going into Andor, which is just something that was so fresh and so new for Star Wars. But, you know, it definitely didn't go with everybody for sure. It didn't have the Force, didn't have the mysticism, but for me, it worked even without that. And you know, me and Milton were talking about you know, on last week's show about what makes things Star Wars at some point, and it's, you know, mysticism and the Force. Yeah, you would think it's a hallmark of Star Wars, but I'll tell you, when it comes down to a lot of it is the rebellion, a lot of it is that kind of spirit that the people have, and we're seeing the beginnings of that in Andor, and really exciting and nuanced ways. So that whole idea of that was definitely a highlight for me this year.
I got you. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, I completely. I mean, I don't completely agree on like the rebellion, like that part being like like a main hallmark compared to like say the Force and like that sort of stuff. But I can see where, you know what I mean. I can see where like you or you know other potential people like view it from that angle. Like I can see, you know, that totally makes sense though because like the original movie, the rebellion, etc. Like you know, there's a lot of that in like the spirit of Star Wars. Like for me, you know, for me, like Andor was a series where I eventually started liking it, probably about halfway through the season, and it just got better. And I think honestly, like my main reason I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have was again, it goes back to my long-running critique of Lucasfilm's marketing department. Like they marketed this as a spy thriller, like action series, and we didn't get that with Andor himself. Basically, the entire series until you know pretty much the end, anyways. So it just, I think, from all the hype and like the talk around it and the marketing is what bogged it down for me. So maybe going back and watching it on rewatch without that chatter. But again, like I think. I mean, they're getting better with it since they haven't really came out and announced a bunch of new projects. Like, I think they, you know, we all heard that report, you know, a month or two ago about like them reeling it in, like don't announce anything until you know it's gonna be coming type thing. I think they're finally getting that type of stuff in order, and I think that's gonna trickle down to more of the actual boots on the ground marketing, like the things of like, hey, this is a spy thriller show, blah blah blah, like. That sort of that type of wording to me does not translate to what we got on screen with Andor. And Andor is a fine show. Like I said, I mean, I gave it like a 7.5 or an 8 or whatever it was. You know, I thought it was a fine show. It's just I think the marketing is what hurt it for me, and potentially that could be a critique maybe in the back of other people's minds just unknowingly. You know, for people who maybe didn't enjoy it as much, maybe that's why. So for me, like I thought it was a fine show, and I do like that they went and made a unique project just because, you know, it is good to try new things. And, you know, they obviously did good on it. I mean, they've got nominations and things such as that, which is great. Like, you know, say what I want about the show. Like it's quality made. Diego Luna's acting was great. And several of the other actors were great as well. Like, I thought it was a well-made show. So I'm excited, though, for the next season. That is one thing I can say the show ended in a way where it does have you kind of on a cliffhanger, excited for the next season, which is very nice. And I think the next season is going to be the season, I think, for me and maybe a lot of other people that critique the show a little tougher, that'll probably be the season that we were looking forward to when we were coming into this season. I came to the realization when we got to the finale, this show's basically a prequel to what we expected, and I think that's what it's going to be.
Interesting. Shifting gears here, though, I want to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi and what were some of your highlights from the show? Did it live up to your expectations? Now, after all these months, we've had time to stew on it. I know people were up and down on us. So, Milton, I'll throw it to you first. Or what was maybe a thing that stood out to you about this show?
I loved the Vader Obi-Wan connection, especially like the last 2 episodes. Yes. Because here's the thing. Literally, I watched that scene probably twice a week when I'm at the gym doing cardio. Because I love the dialogue. I love the dialogue between those two guys. Like whenever he gets his helmet sliced, that dialogue is gorgeous. Like it gives me I got goosebumps right now talking about it. Like that's how much I love that dialogue and seeing Hayden in that outfit. But what did that show do for me? What stood out to me? I love the character development of Obi-Wan Kenobi and just seeing that different side of him, seeing that I can see how Luke Skywalker became what he was in the sequel trilogy. Like I will give Rian Johnson some credit in a sense to say like, yeah, I know, I know. Trust me, that movie's still trash. But Star Wars has always been formulaic. It's always had a pattern to it. So you see Obi-Wan at his lowest in the beginning of the series. He's accepted, hey, we lost. The fight is done. I mean, he says that, move on. Luke says it in the sequel trilogy. Hey, like, the Jedi are the issue. Like, we're the reasons why shit keeps hitting the fan. So we got to be done. Let's move on. It's like, oh, okay. That makes sense. Even though I don't like it, but I can see why it's in there. And I love how they developed Obi-Wan. I loved how they brought him back. Now, this is the difference of why I like Obi-Wan. They brought him back to that optimistic character of saying, hey, there's still hope in the galaxy.
Yeah.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
His viewpoint had to change. He finally adapted. That was a problem with the Jedi. They did not adapt. The Sith did. The Sith adapted when they needed to, which is why they beat the Jedi. Obi-Wan is now taking that path to adapting and saying, okay, we got to now take our time. We have to now learn how to retrain ourselves to take on this new type of Sith. We were preparing for the old Sith, and I think the show did a really good job at changing the philosophy of the Jedi, which also did a really good job seamlessly to see how we got Ewan McGregor's Ben Kenobi to then now Alec Guinness's Kenobi and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you're seeing those two worlds merge together. I love that. I just love Ewan McGregor's performance. I love seeing Hayden back because I'm a huge Hayden Christensen fan. I love him as Anakin. I love how he got all this love. I cannot wait for him for Ahsoka. That's my highly anticipated show for 2023. And with the new rumors coming out about him being in it as episode 3, Obi-Wan or Anakin, we fire. Really? Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't send that to the group chat this week, Milton.
So I've read that.
Oh.
Chris, I'm shocked you to see this. So, breaking news on
I guess so. I mean...
Yeah, so I guess the rumor and innuendo is that Hayden's in the show. We knew that.
Okay.
That he's going to be Anakin from episode 3.
What the world?
Potentially fighting Ahsoka.
What?
I don't know how they're going to do it. I have no idea. But I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Hayden knows how to use a lightsaber, clearly.
Yeah, I will say for Obi-Wan, my standout was, as you already mentioned, the Vader versus Obi-Wan duel. And, when Kathleen Kennedy first proposed that we were getting this Obi-Wan series, she said it would be the fight of the century or something to that degree. And
right.
It was pretty cool. And,
I wouldn't say it was fight of the century, but it was bad.
No. If it was going to be that, I think, Milton, you put those awesome thoughts in my head about, oh my gosh, it's going to be Naboo. They're going to be fighting in the waterfalls behind them, and it's going to be so cool. And I had that in my head, and they all showed up to a rock planet. So
I will say that's probably, because even watching it now, I'm thinking, man, the lighting isn't great. but then maybe they did that on purpose. But then I've seen people edit it up to like brighten it up.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, and Chris, I'll let you finish. I apologize. If they would have at least either brought him back to Mustafar,
Yeah.
which would be, very like ironic if he loses there again, or like go to like Tatooine, but really has no idea. But then how they shot the show, that wouldn't work. I mean, it'd be kind of dope if he went to go look for like Padme's grave and he fought him there in the blue. That'd be kind of fire. And he got his ass kicked. I'd be like, all right,
man.
this show's done it for me. But continue, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, no, it was a show that even looking back now, I was still like lukewarm about it. It's just it happened, and I just feel like it should have had more impact for me personally, because it's like, it's Obi-Wan, like Ewan McGregor. We were talking about this for years and years and years, and now it's like way back there in the, in the rearview mirror, where it's just like, oh, I don't even really give it the thought of day, like several weeks ever. Like it happened, it came and it went, and it's like, when you look at it, yeah, you see Obi-Wan going from Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan and like Lost All Hope to, like you said, you do see him turn it good at the end. But there was a lot of stuff in the middle of that series that it kind of washed over me. It started off really strong and it ended really strong, but the stuff in the middle there is what kind of just didn't settle perfectly with me.
I agree. No, I totally 100% agree. I mean, I think we all said it. Those first 2 episodes. I was listening to John Campion talk about this. He said the first 2 episodes he loved too. We all did. Mm-hmm. And then episodes 3 and 4 were kind of like, eh. And 5 was picking up, and the 6 was what it was. I totally agree, and I think we all questioned it and said, why didn't they? I think the filming locations kind of messed this up because everything just felt like it was just very artificial. They shot on the volume a lot, right? Am I correct, Ben?
Yeah,
and I know
pretty much the entire thing was in the volume for the most part. Yeah,
so and I know all 3 of us, especially you, Ben, were like, why are we doing that? Like
you can see it. You can see the building.
This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, guys. And then I even said it when we were reviewing Andor. It's like, wait a minute. How come Andor is getting a budget like this? And this is not even a Legends character. Obi-Wan should have been shot like this. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, so I think that was a huge missed opportunity. And I think this goes into some of your point, Chris, about how the show was very lukewarm to you. And even looking back on it now, it's not something that you look forward to watching again. I'm sure you will. Yeah, but it's not like it's not like something like, man, I gotta put on Kenobi today. I watch clips. I haven't watched the full series yet. Again, I need to. But I love watching the individual clips. But again, like you're right. If this show should have been more impactful, where it's like, man, I gotta watch this weekly, or I gotta watch me a couple of episodes. I still go back and watch Clone Wars. That's how impactful that show is.
Seriously.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I still go back and watch Rebels. That's how impactful that show is. Mm-hmm. I still go back and watch some episodes of Visions. That's how impactful that show is. Mm-hmm. So I think Mando's the same thing. So hopefully they understand, like, okay, moving forward, these shows need to be impactful where people still want to watch these over and over again. They want to show their moms or pops. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to show my grandkids 30 years from now saying, hey, your grandpop was watching this. And this is fire. Mm-hmm. Like, so.
Let's shift gears to the other live action series that we haven't spent a lot of time, and it's the Book of Boba Fett. And I want to start off with something that took the world by storm. A lot of discussions on different social networks about, oh wow, episodes 5 and 6 are Mandalorian episodes. So I want to start with that flashpoint back in time there in the early part of 2022 when people's minds were blown that all of a sudden Book of Boba Fett went from like a D rating show to an A+ show as soon as Mando stepped on the scene. So I'll throw it over to Ben for this one. What were your thoughts on this moment with Boba, with Luke showing up, all the good stuff there?
Yeah, I mean, that right there is the main reason I always bring up about Mando being like such a big cultural phenomenon. It literally can pull a show like Boba basically from the dirt to making it a really highly successful show. Like that, like The Mandalorian, is as big a phenomenon as we've seen on TV shows, like popularity wise, in terms of anything really, in terms of trends and stuff, since like Game of Thrones and people chatting about it. Like, it's that big of a property. So like that's why it was able to do that. And then of course, not setting that aside, like its overall cultural like impact societally, inside the show, like the stuff that happened was so great. It was so entertaining. It was a good story. Obviously, seeing Luke was incredible. It was incredible seeing the way they did his whole CGI and stuff, I guess you would say, or motion capture. Like all of that was amazing. Or deep fake. Deep fake. That was the word I was looking for. Deep fake. It was great seeing that. It was great. It was great knowing the fact that Lucasfilm like stepped outside of their boundaries and like got a YouTuber to help them out on that sort of stuff. Like that's humbling for a $1 billion company to do something like that, to hire a feebly YouTuber. So that was awesome seeing that. And then in terms of like just the stuff that was going on, the fact that we get Ahsoka, the fact that we get Grogu training, the fact that we get that awesome opening with Mando just being like a badass, like bounty hunter. Like literally he's back to the old ways of being a bounty hunter and being ruthless at that. So like, it's pretty much when you watch those episodes, you're like, so they basically took what Boba Fett was supposed to be and made him Mando, basically. Because, I mean, we've said it since Mando Season 1, Episode 1. This is basically the Boba Fett show minus Boba Fett. Like, this is pretty much what we're going with here. So, like, the fact, I think both of those episodes were phenomenal, what they did there. And, I just thought it was a really nice part of that series. And it does kind of fall back on the whole... the chatter of it being Mando season 2.5, and pretty much was. It pretty much was for all intents and purposes. Like, we, especially, I mean, heck, the way the last episode ends, Mando flies off with Grogu. Like, it's Mando, basically, people.
That's what I'm saying.
So, like, yeah, so go on, Milton.
No, I'm about to say, you're not, I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, wait, didn't the show end with Grogu and Mando flying off? I'm like,
Grogu's like he's waving out the cockpit.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Nah, like I agree. Like first of all, like those Luke episodes, fire. That's the best part of the show. Like I mean, let's be real here. Like Luke pops on screen again for him to look better than he did at the end of Mando season 2. I was like, yo, you just make a series.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like that's what we need. One. Okay, like that's another podcast for another day. But like, make a series with that technology. 2, you have Ahsoka, Mando, and Luke all in the same same area, and she's talking about your Anakin. She's like, "Oh, you're just like your father." Everybody was like, I'm watching people. Grown men were crying. Grown women are crying when she says that one sentence, like, "Oh my God!" Like she's talking about Anakin. Like pretty much that's Luke's auntie right there that he's talking to.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how dope is that? And again, that got me more hyped for that particular show. Just hearing them interact, just like, this is what we wanted.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, like, those 2 episodes was fire. Mando or Boba Fett had some good qualities about it. But what's funny is I love to now seeing Tamara Morrison saying, we need to get back to the ruthless, badass.
Oh my gosh!
Yep. And I hope,
he's actually saying that.
Yeah, he's saying that.
Yeah, Chris. If you didn't see it,
Chris, I'm out here just breaking stories tonight.
Milton's breaking news. He's being Adam Schefter on us tonight.
Pretty much.
He's actually saying this stuff though. Like, I'm surprised they're not like slapping him on the wrist for like talking about his own show like this.
Chris, it was It was an interview with Morrison, and I think what's her name was there too, wasn't she? Milton? In one of the interviews I saw, it was like the girl that plays Fennec Shand, Ming-Na Wen. Like Tamara Morrison was talking. He's like, yeah, we need to get back to like the roots of Boba being a bounty hunter, and like going on the hunt and blah blah blah. Like he was like implying like, hey, we need to change this stuff up for the next season type deal. You know what I mean? Like imply, for the next thing.
As he should.
And see, and that falls on my next point with this show, Milton. It's like, all right, guys. Again, obviously, this isn't like a PR thing, marketing thing. This is more a John and Dave and the other guy, Rodriguez thing. Mm-hmm. So, false advertising in a way of, they gave us Boba Fett in the most incredible way in Mando Season 2. Like, that was everything everyone imagined Boba Fett would ever be, was that episode in Mando Season 2. And then, presumably, see, they didn't even do a time jump because Boba went and, like, shot up Jabba's palace for all intents and purposes. And then, not too long after that, we have Book of Boba Fett taking place. So it's just like, to me, how does Boba Fett's character go from that to just having an awakening after all these years going, I'm good. I'm not gonna use my blaster or anything until like basically the end of my own show because I'm too good for that. And like my thing is, and then the thing that gets me more about that is just the fact that like John and Dave, they kind of like, they were arguing back with the fans about it, and the behind the scenes, like the Boba Fett behind the scenes thing, they were like hardcore defending that choice. Like you could tell they heard feedback on it, like because John was like, well, why would Boba, being the lead of the show, go back to those ways? And even Dave was like, characters want to evolve and this and that, and why? And John, interrupted. It was like a back and forth thing, and John was like, why would anyone want to watch Boba go around just blasting and doing action-packed stuff for 6 episodes? It's like that's what we want.
Awesome.
Well, no,
that's what we want.
Like, I want to see killing.
Like,
I used to joke around all the time and say, no lie, Chris or Ben. I used to joke around with my buddies and say, these are the 3 things I like when it comes to storytelling. And again, this is like 10 years ago. I want to see a good story, killing, and some nudity. Like that. Those were my standards, bro. Like 10 years ago. But in this factor, I want to see him kill people because that's what he does.
Yeah. I didn't understand that whole aspect. It's like my thing was, this is a whole creative thing. If you have the keys to the kingdom to make a Boba Fett show, I think all 3 of us can universally say neither of us would have made that show that we got.
Here's where I was thinking when you guys were talking. When it comes out of the show, it just didn't have a direction for Boba Fett, and that's what made it
hard.
Yeah. Right?
None at all.
You just have a guy in scenes that you don't have an attachment to care about enough to know what's happening next. So it's like, okay, he's doing this thing and this thing, but why is this important? That was never written out strongly enough to make us care, and that's really Chris, what it comes down to.
I'll let you go. I'll just say this real quick. Even at the end of the show, at first I thought, and I'm sure you guys thought it too, at first when you saw those mafia guys getting taken out, I was like, oh man, is this the Boba Fett we want? He's going to take these people out. Oh, and then it's Fennec Shan. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess she's doing his dirty work for him. So like, he's not fine with doing that type of stuff, but he's fine with letting other people do the killing. It's like, is this the Batman thing all over again? So it's just like, to me, they could have redeemed some of his like action-packed character if they would have let him do that stuff at the end. It's just. Yeah. But anyways, Chris, go on.
Yeah, no, I'll get off of the actual show content itself and talk about a little bit of my experience with Boba Fett and covering it, because Book of Boba Fett was the coverage I got on that blew my channel up a lot more than it ever had in the first place. So for me, I just enjoyed covering all the nitty gritty from Cad Bane, is he dead or not, to the history of Black Chrysanthemum, to a lot of really cool videos that I got a chance to really dig in the community and interact with a lot more people than I'm used to on the channel. So whether it's a good show or if it's a bad show, at least it was definitely a milestone in my YouTube short career here to see like, this is fun,
I do want to put out there.
Go ahead.
I'll just say real quick. Sorry, we have so much to say about this show, surprisingly. But I will throw out there as well. We got to remember, guys, like we also could be, and I talked to one of my buddies about this and my cousin about this, who are all like more inside baseball Star Wars fans like we are. They all kind of in the same boat as we are about the show. It's like it has some good points, it has some bad points, and we could have done a totally different direction with the character type deal. But we do have to remember, the Boba finale was like Disney Plus's biggest finale, like for Star Wars shows. So in terms of viewership, so that show was a big success potentially general audience wise, because maybe those people looked at that show and were like, yeah, this is fine for the character. So like, that is something to keep in mind here. Like, we could, of course we're like the diehard fans, but we could actually be in the minority on this opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's people out there that are just, they're not like us where they're super into weeds. So they watch some, shooting some action. They're like, yeah, that Boba Fett, that was pretty good, wasn't it? And that's like, we're like 5% of like the movie population. Anybody watching this channel here, this video is like the 5%. Everybody else is the super mainstream, and they're not going to think twice of watching anything again, so it's for them. They got the mass casual audience for sure. So getting off of the live action stuff here, we spent a good deal amount of time because I mean that is the forefront of Star Wars these days with the movies and all that. What were some other highlights for you guys, Milton, as far as Star Wars? Anything that has come out besides the shows? Has there been any stories that have happened? Any behind the scene things, documentaries, anything else you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you guys know how much I loved, Tales of the Jedi was my favorite show this year.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, Obi-Wan was my most anticipated show. Mm-hmm. But I will say the thing that I really enjoyed most it was perfection. Perfection was that Light and Magic documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I watched it first before you guys did.
You watched it in like one sitting, didn't you?
I watched it all night. I literally watched it like.
Oh my
I think I watched it in like 6 hours, whatever it was.
You did.
And yeah, I think I watched it overnight, and then I think I watched the last 2 episodes like the next day because that's how good it was. You guys know me. I'm the behind the scenes guy. I love documentaries, that type of thing, and it was perfection. I love seeing just the ins and outs of Industrial Light and Magic, how it was started, different funding that they went through, the issues of funding, and how they almost went like bankrupt, and just trying to invent new technologies and the drama behind it, and knowing Jimmy Dykstra, how really important he was to the beginnings of that company, and how people don't really remember that name. He was one of the founding members of ILM, and he didn't go with them to when they did Empire because of the rift between him and Lucas, how things just went apart. But just seeing how that company, it's 40 plus years in the making and still going on. I mean, probably one of the best effects houses in the world, and how every movie studio uses them. We don't get the DCU without that. We don't get the MCU. We don't get Transformers. We don't see this stuff without ILM. And that's how impactful that particular company has been on television, streaming, TV shows, whatever. It's beautiful to see that Star Wars was the beginning of that. And it's awesome to see that George Lucas's legacy is beyond Star Wars. It's not just Star Wars. It's ILM. It's all the it's just amazing. And so just seeing that behind the scenes stuff, just seeing how things really played itself out and just how it evolved as a company, it was amazing. So I love that documentary, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if I go back and rewatch it sometime in the near future.
Yeah, it's one of those documentaries that you watch and I don't know what profession you're in or where you're at in your life, but I mean, it kind of makes you want to like make a movie after watching that, because it's really just so cool to see how they come up with these ideas, but also the way that Larry Kasdan, writer on Empire Strikes Back, he put the whole thing together to add this kind of story to it. So it's really entertaining to watch, and it's not dull or dry. There's a lot of great music tracks to kind of space in through there, and it's just so cool to see the legacy of this thing. Everything from Willow to T2 Judgment Day to the Abyss to everything. It was just such a cool, and I watched that, and I just immediately started watching all those movies again, like E.T. I started watching some of these movies for the first time ever, like Willow, just because of this thing opening my mind up to be like, oh, what has Lucasfilm also worked on, or what have they partnered on with their ILM studio? And yeah, of course, you got to throw in like there's a bunch of new George Lucas interviews, which are just so hilarious. Some of the best George Lucas stuff you'll see in a long time is in there, where he's just cracking jokes and laughing, and it's like, wow, they got George Lucas to have fun on set here, just talking about the good old days. This is great. But it's funny because like I was watching this, spacing it out, because this was in July when it came out, and there wasn't really anything going on at that time, because I think Kenobi had maybe just finished at that point. So I was like, we got some time. So I was literally like watching it like it would be a Star Wars series. Like every week, I looked forward to waking up on a Wednesday morning and watching the next episode of Light and Magic.
Nah, dude, I was binging that bad boy. Like I love that they put it all out. Because again, like I just love how it evolved, and so many talented people came from that. Like the director. Like people forget. Like I didn't realize, and when I went back and did some research, I forgot that the director of the first Avenger, and I forget his name, Jim Johnston. Is that what it is? Or,
oh yeah.
He worked at ILM. He was like an artist. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I've seen that name before, and I was like, wait, what? Like
he created Boba Fett.
Yeah, was it him?
He was the concept artist of Boba Fett.
That's
wasn't
right.
he, Ben?
That was him. And it's like wait a minute. We have a director of the first Avenger of the MCU. He used to work at ILM as like an artist, and then because Lucas paid for like his film school.
Yeah,
we talked about that, and it's like, how dope is that? And obviously you got the John Knowles and how his story, like John Knowles' story is pretty dope. How he like pretty much pitched himself to this lady about what he wanted to do, and then she's like, well, we're going to hire you. And then Doug Chang came on board, and then it's like, wait a minute, I hear these people, it's like, wait, these guys are awesome. Like that's why I love the behind the scenes. That's why I have those Art of Star Wars books, because like they're so dope to look at. I mean, I love the documentaries for this reason. The prequel documentaries really got me hooked, and I love watching them now, but this particular one is probably one of my top 5 documentaries of Star Wars.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, top 5. For me, it'd probably be top 3. I think Empire Dreams is up there, the beginning, and maybe this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it would be this one. It'd be Light and Magic. It'd be the History Channel Star Wars one they did. It'd be Revenge of the Sith, Episode 1, and Empire. Yeah, Empire. Was it Empire Dreams? That what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one be that's on that list.
Yeah, Ben. Did you finish Light and Magic at all?
Yeah, I can basically agree with all the different points both of you made. Like, it's always so nice watching those type of documentaries. Like that one was so good. Like seeing, of course, like you mentioned, Chris, the new stuff with George, all the just the different little odds and end things we got throughout it, I thought were really nice. And just the fact, like the people involved were so good with the storytelling, so good with the thoroughness, say, of the interviews, like, talking about their behind the scenes experiences and things. Like you mentioned, Chris, when you watch something like that so good, it's like, man, I want to go make a movie. Like, that's what kept popping through my head while watching that. I was like, man, I wish I was a director. Like in an alternate reality, I would love to be a director or something, just because like, just seeing how much joy and passion these people have, like putting their time and effort into it, I thought was like probably one of the best parts of the entire thing. And like I mentioned, of course, like seeing the more George, the better. And it makes me wonder what other interviews and things they're just saving for future like documentaries and docuseries and things like that, because they have plenty of footage, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it was crazy seeing, like, we've all watched, especially Milton. He's our resident documentary Star Wars historian here, and still seeing those new images, new videos of George just sitting on this armchair, just talking candidly to somebody about Star Wars. I'm like, how much of this stuff do they have? I mean, Star Wars has been going on for 45 darn years at this point, and we're still seeing new content doled out to us. What the heck?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I think I said at the time when I was giving my little mini review over the summer, like they got this stuff stored. They have a whole bunch of footage that we still probably haven't even seen. I mean, come on, like
Oh yeah.
they were filming this stuff back in the late '70s, into the '80s, into the '90s. I'm sure there are things that they don't want us to see because it might be controversial, which is fine. I don't need to see that stuff. I just want to see stuff that's going to show how ILM, evolved, which they did. They did a really good job at that. Like, I love how they told the story of was it Phil Tippett?
Yeah.
How he was their puppet guy, or like
Oh yeah.
their
With the
top
CGI.
top action, yeah, and how like he was getting phased out.
Mm-hmm.
But then like they brought him back to like help with like the digital side of things, like okay, how to move these people, how to move these creatures and that type of thing. And yeah, even like, again, it's heartbreaking, but it was necessary to see that because technology was changing, the world was changing. We wouldn't get Jurassic Park without Phil Tippett with his modeling of puppets, but also we wouldn't have gotten Jurassic Park without the digital side of things too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So moving on. Ben, you and I can talk a little bit about this one. Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I have dumped.
Hey, let me just mute real quick. I ain't talking about this.
You're good.
I have dumped about 70 hours into that game at this point, probably. And I'm not even close to being done. But it's been a fun adventure. Literally, it's an adventure game where you're going around the galaxy, landing on different planets, collecting things, playing as any other character. There's character packs for Obi-Wan or it's a lot of fun. It harkens back to the good old days of like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 gaming, where you're just going around collectathon, platforming, just shooting a bunch of bad guys and having a lot of comedic laughs because there's a lot to do in that game. So yeah, I mean, what was your experiences with this game this year?
Yeah, I had a lot of similar experiences as well. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the expansiveness of it, like being able to like, just explore so many of the different areas in Star Wars. Like it just makes it a lot of fun. It makes it feel more immersive. Like to me, that's always what I wanted. Like in Star Wars was an open world-esque type game. That's basically what we got with this one. So I really like that, and the fact that it still held true to a lot of the stuff from the original games. Like you have to play through it quite a bit to complete it 100%. Just those type of things I'm glad they held true to, because, it would have been easy for them not to make it where you have to do that sort of stuff, like play it back through. Like they could have just made it a one-time playthrough campaign and be done. So it's nice that they did that. And then, as I mentioned, it's another like kind of milestone of Star Wars gaming where it's like, hey, there's a success. Boom, like there's Fallen Order, like they're getting a couple milestones of good gaming under their belt, which is nice after all of the ups and downs of Star Wars gaming over the years under the Disney umbrella. So it's good that like the Skywalker Saga was really big. I feel like there was a lot of buzz on it on social media. I feel like you've seen plenty of people posting and talking about it, and whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, what have you. Like I felt like it was a game that was really out there for the audience, which is nice because sometimes a game may come out and it may feel like it's like just for like the hardcore niche audience type thing, like
Battlefront,
like the app game, like you guys talked about. What is it, Galaxy of Heroes? Yeah, like that to me feels like more of like a niche type game because you don't see that like trending on Twitter like as like the top trending topic. Like when the Skywalker Saga came out, that was like a trending topic on Twitter. Like people were posting about it. Like I saw really casual Star Wars fans I know, that's for sure, that literally go and post, hey, anybody play Skywalker Saga or anybody play the new Lego game, Star Wars Lego game that's out? I was thinking of buying it to play with my like kid or my niece or nephew or whatever. Like just seeing random people like that talk about it is nice. Like that shows that game like permeated more than just the niche audiences, which is a big step in the right direction in my opinion.
Yeah. Ben, do you want to mention a highlight of something from this year that we haven't talked about so far?
I feel like for me, really, when it comes to this year, I think, I don't know, we've covered most of the shows. I feel like most of the games, most of the, obviously there's a lack of movies. I wish there was a movie we would be talking about right now because the holiday season is Star Wars season, in my opinion. especially the Christmas season. Like, this is when we should be talking about new Star Wars projects. Like, let's be real here, guys. Like, when it comes to Star Wars, we should have had a movie coming out last week. I mean, I guess last weekend was Avatar, but you know what I mean? Like, there should have been a Star Wars movie December 17th or something. Like that's how it should have been. But it's like that's one thing that I do really miss about Star Wars is like the movies. I really, really want them to get back to one movie a year. And then as for like this year as a whole, like I said, we covered most of the movies and our shows, whatever content. But to me, honestly, I think one of the best, if not the best part of this year of Star Wars for me is just really the social aspect of it. You know, talking with you guys every week is always a highlight of the week. Talking with you guys, talking with our subscribers, our viewers, people in the chat, talking with people on social media, whether it be debates or agreeing on topics or, you know, making new friends. Like, you know, we've had plenty of guests on here like Steven or Hannah or Chris or whoever. You know, we made friends through other podcasts like that. Me personally, I've became really good friends with one of the like more Star Wars like pretty good news reporters, Jason Ward from Making Star Wars. Like becoming friends with him, becoming friends with other Star Wars content creators. Like stuff like that to me is some of the best parts of Star Wars because it's like that's what like the original trilogy like Lucas like intended it to be like a cultural thing where people are talking about it and enjoying it. And for me, this year was another year of like making new friends, talking, debating, all of that sort of stuff. And to me, that was like probably the best part of my Star Wars year because, you know, we can all enjoy Star Wars, whether it be the movies or shows, like till the cows come home, but you're not going to enjoy it if you can't talk about it to other people. Like, of course you may enjoy it, but for example, Chris, like, let's ask you this. Let's take Fallen Order. You can play through it all the way, but you're not allowed to talk about it to anybody. You know, it would decrease the fun of that game a millionfold. So, like, to me, like the cultural experience of Star Wars is just as big of the content. And, like, for this year, I think it was a really good year. There was a lot of good highs and even lows of the fandom where people just, like, really communicated and got aired good and bad grievances. And I think that's healthy for communication amongst the fans. And that, to me, that was, like, the biggest highlight. A really nice discussion amongst Star Wars fans, and you know, should be another good year. There's plenty of new content to talk about it this coming year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ben. And I was gonna actually talk about my highlight, which also happens to deal with the social aspect, but just kind of going off of your point there specifically about this channel, about outerrimtransmission as a podcast, about, you know, getting collaboration with other people on the channel, on other podcasts. Yeah, I was on, you know, Ion Canon podcast, the Star Wars Underworld podcast, and, you know, Jesse Bennett's podcast, all these different people, Steven Schinder's own Delayed Replay. So, you know, it's always really humbling knowing that, you know, people like to share experiences with us here from the channel and get on here. And even in the chat, just, you know, like Jack was chiming in earlier in the chat, like exactly as you pointed up, it's like, what's the fun of, you know, Star Wars if you can't talk about it with somebody else? We have so much excitement and so much wonder with this thing. We want to know what other people are thinking about it. We want to spitball fan theories and speculate, and that's just half the fun, right? In the lead up to The Force Awakens, that's like the time that was at a fever pitch where everybody was, ooh, what's this cross-guard lightsaber guy? What is he doing? And what's over here with these things in the desert? And it's just, that's part of the zeitgeist when it comes to a Star Wars fandom. It's just that socialization and everything from that perspective. As far as me, you picked a great topic because I'm going to jump right into mine at Star Wars Celebration. Ben, everything you have just explained, it's basically all like times 10 at Celebration, because you're just surrounded by everybody, and it's so fun because you could be walking around and and somebody and you're like, hey, you're so and so, and you just like, yeah, you're that guy, and next thing you know you're talking,
Yep.
and then you'll be like, for me specifically, like I'm outside of watching the what is it, the I was outside of the part of the building where we were watching the Attack of the Clones anniversary, and I think, Ben, you were watching it live.
Yep.
And I set up my camera because I was
Oh,
about to do a. Go ahead. Were you about to say
well, I was
something?
going to
Okay.
say, yeah, I was going to say, well, you mentioned, I remember when you went there, you said someone recognized your voice, like from the podcast. Like, that's cool. Like, that type of like parts of the Star Wars fandom is so cool. Like, just seeing, that like
Right.
interaction, like people recognizing Chris, like, and if you and me were there, Milton, with him, like, they would recognize us, like, potentially, like, so stuff like that, I think, is like the best part of this whole Star Wars fandom, like, experience. Like, don't get me wrong, us as Star Wars fans, like, we may, it's like brothers and sisters, we may fight and bicker and things like that, but at the end of the day, we're all fans of the same thing here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, it's great, like, having these types of discussions and debates and things like that. Like, as I mentioned, like, for example, like Andor, I wasn't the biggest fan of that show by any stretch, but I would rather be able to like talk about it, talk about my likes and dislikes of the show with you guys, with people on Twitter, with people through texting or whatever, than just talk about it with myself sitting here in four walls of a living room or something. Like,
Yeah.
Star Wars, like, the social aspect of Star Wars is so huge and so, I think, oftentimes overlooked and actually, in my opinion, taken for granted. So it's nice, like, seeing, in my opinion, I think Star Wars fandom went in a good direction this year because there was a lot of communication, a lot of like grievances and things aired that potentially are getting moved by in the fandom. So
Yeah.
it's just nice, like, getting past a lot of certain things and topics and whatnot. Like, it's nice getting that like fandom communication out there.
Yeah. So as far as Celebration, like, obviously I go there for the news. I want to be there on the spot when they announce this or
Yep.
show this or whatever. But when you get there, all of a sudden you don't really care. At least I don't. I'd much rather go and get lunch with my buddy that I haven't seen in 3 years or something, that lives all the way across the country, than, oh yeah, let me just see this thing that everybody else will see in another 3 months or something, right? So it's really
Yep.
that kind of stuff that's happening, where it's like, oh yeah, I set up my camera for video recording, and then I just see Steven Cinder walking down. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? You want to shoot this video reaction? And I just like get him on the mic, and we're just doing this thing, like shooting from the hip out of in the middle of this like really nice warm Anaheim, California day. And then I'm there on the scene with Matthew from Ion Cannon, just talking about High Republic stuff. And there's like people walking in all High Republic cosplay, and we had to stop recording and just like kind of look and be like, holy crap, like we're at Celebration, this is the stuff that you always watch at home, and you're like, we're actually here this time. And there's a certain energy that's emanating from everybody. Nobody is like, at all disappointed. Everybody's on this Star Wars high at all points, and you're just running off of like pure, just like fan hype at that point. So, yeah, I always talk about it because I know it just means so much to everybody that goes, everybody in the community. Hopefully it's on the East Coast if it does come in 2024 for all of us over here on the East Coast. But yeah, I know we're going to have to cut things shorter than we wanted to a little bit this week. But I think we basically got everything we wanted to kind of hit on, at least from my perspective. Yeah, I have books and comics and all, but I feel like I'll go into a very long monologue with all that, and I could do that on my own time. But any last thoughts from you, Milton?
Yeah, I mean, just two things, I guess, just to and this is kind of stick the knife in it to be funny. Hey, this year has been a good year for Star Wars in the sense of fandom. I compared to past years. At least we're not acting like the DCU right now. Okay, with all that toxicity going on. Just saying. So Star Wars fans, you guys have been pretty much consistent this year, which is a good thing. I think that has a lot to do with not having any movies the last couple years. I think that's been a good thing. Maybe now moving forward, with them announcing their plan, coming up with a plan, and being consistent and sticking by it, and not having all this up and downness. Like, hopefully, that's still good for the fandom, because again, we don't want it to transform into what's happening with the DCU, which I'm a huge fan of DC and Marvel. I want them to both be successful, but that's another podcast for another day. But yeah, I think, like you guys mentioned about how Star Wars brings people together. You get to meet new people, you get to see new experiences. I love that about this community. I love that about Star Wars. It was nice to meet the guys that the men and women, Chris, you become friends with your other podcast. It's great that they've been on it this year. It was cool to like interact with them, like whether it's Dominic, Hannah, who's the other guy? Who was on 2 weeks ago? Chris, yeah, and then someone else we met. Like, it's just a whole bunch of those people that we met over this past year has been amazing, and they're just like us in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. They're just fans, and they just want to talk about this stuff, which is a great thing. So I just encourage anyone who's listening or watching, whether it's this podcast or another, just embrace people wanting to communicate with you about Star Wars. It's such a positive thing, whether you agree or not about a property within Star Wars. Just communicate, have fun with it. That's all it is. It's all make believe, but it's really, really important that we just have a good time with it and just communicate and just have fun, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it breaks down barriers. It really does. It breaks down barriers, and that's why I love it so much, because then and even people on the street, I always talk about my job, or it's like, oh yeah, I don't think I have anything in common with this person. And then as we get into more than the fitness stuff, as we often do, then it's like, holy crap, they're into this and they're into this, and next thing you know, it's like, oh shoot, we actually have to work out now because we're standing talking about this stupid thing for too long. Let's go, man. Yeah, so from all of us here at Outer Rim Transmission, we want to thank everybody out there that has helped make this a much fun and a time that we really enjoy every week, bringing this to you guys. As far as program is concerned, we'll be back next week. Milton, we'll see you for our Bad Batch review in the first week of January, right?
Yes, yeah, I will not be here next Friday, as I'll be celebrating with some family members down in North Carolina with the new year coming in. So I'll be on a mini vacation.
Nice.
In New York. The new year down in North Carolina.
There you go. Get some nice ribs, man. I mean, right, the barbecue down there has got to be good.
Well, I'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'm not really familiar with everything that's down there. I'll be like staying like that Raleigh, Wake Forest area of North Carolina.
Okay.
I actually had to book my ticket from my hotel today. All that stuff. So I'm driving down there. It's like a 6-hour ride. So.
Okay. Yeah, and as far as for me and Ben next week, we're going to be talking predictions for 2023, or not predictions, but like a preview is a better explanation. We'll talk about all the shows that are coming out of the books, everything. We're going to just run through the whole list of gamut. Maybe we'll get some kind of Christmas present from Lucasfilm, rumors, rumblings. I don't even know if that's out there anymore, but hey, we'll see. We'll be here next week anyway. So there you go. Ben, where can the people find you talking about Star Wars and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBenMaynard. I'm, talking Star Wars, talking football, and of course, talking fitness. And I'm going to get back to posting on Instagram here soon. Once the holidays are wrapped up, it's time to get in full diet mode of getting back to getting shredded after, taking some time off for some family and just kind of like maintaining the last couple weeks. It's time to get back on the grind starting actually this coming Monday, December 26th. So I'll be back.
Milton, I know you're going to be doing some lifting over the next couple days. So where can people follow you for all that awesome fitness footage, man?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at MiltonWeber7, or follow me on Instagram at Milton7Weber. Obviously, the grind never stops. I'm always in the gym. That's just consistent. But I post on Instagram my workout videos. I'm usually on Twitter I'm just being funny, just posting random stuff. But yeah, if you guys want to follow me on those social media platforms, by all means, go ahead. I tend to try to just keep it very positive, very funny, just very like just non-serious when it comes to just life. I just want to like bring positivity.
Yep.
So
Yep.
check me out on my platforms. I'll interact with you if you hit me up. Now, if you acting a fool, you getting chin checked or you getting blocked. So keep it positive.
There we go. And we want to wish everybody out there happy holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Everybody, families utmost importance, and friends too. So make sure you go and tell your loved ones, tell your friends, tell them how much you appreciate them, and really bask in the moment, enjoy it, because the moment's over very quickly, right? We all look forward to the holidays, and next thing you know, we're getting closer to summer, which is always a good thing, though. It's always a good thing. I'm ready for the warmth because it's way too cold right now.
You ain't lying, dude. Today with that wind, nah, bruh.
Nope. When you have to like almost rip your car handle off with the frozen door not getting ajar, then it's too cold.
Well, guys, for what it's worth, for what it's worth, I'm sitting here. So on this podcast right now, even when you guys were talking, over the audio in my ears, I can hear the wind just blowing out back because, like I said, it's blowing 40 to 50 miles an hour here, and it's just minus 10 degrees, so it's absolutely terrible outside. So I'm like, yeah, the holidays are nice and all, but when December 26th gets here and January 2nd gets here, then it's like, well, now we're in like the Game of Thrones, like winter has came and now we're here in the cold winter for a few months. So it's just like, let's get through this.
Yeah, so dress warm, people, if you're in the United States, on the Eastern Seaboard and all that sort of thing. But yeah, as far as for me this year, or for this YouTube channel, you can follow me, youtube.com/Starrapter. If you are listening, you can go ahead and you can download us on Outer Rim Transmission on any podcast platform. We'll be live next Friday and every Friday pretty much at 9 o'clock Eastern here on YouTube. So that's going to do it for Ben, for Milton, for Starrapter, a.k.a. Chris. Thanks for watching. May the Force be with you, and happy holidays. Goodbye.